Okay. So what I'd like to do today, I'm not sure it's going to happen, to do mitzvah ratio tests. I think we did a lot into ratio tests. I'm not sure if we finished it, but let's pick up ratio tests and Reish Chof and see how much we can get into Reish Yud Daled. Okay? Okay. Wait a minute. Mitzvah. Now, here's an interesting thing. I have to show you something, okay? HaMitzvos HaTesha Esri Tsh'a Esrei U'Mosayim 219. He din motzi shemra. Now, interesting. The word din is in the original Judeo-Arabic, okay? Kloima shetzivonu al kaisai. So we would have expected kloima shetzivonu al kaisai is it should have been a shrana because it's the chadin, okay? But it's not. So in the Judeo-Arabic, it's amal, which is a mitzvah gila. So the first part of this year is going to focus on this a priori quagmire of what is I'm trying to say. We pointed out the Minchas Chinuch doesn't talk about it explicitly, but he alludes to such an idea, and I think the Rambam would say it when you want to differentiate between Amar and Shrano. Amar is a mitzvah sheish bo kiyum, and Shrano is just a hero of the Torah, and there's no kiyum. So the question is there a kiyum in this mitzvah of this din of motzi shemra? Is there a kiyum? Is it a shrana where there's no kiyum, or it's an amar where there is a kiyum? We said, for example, the classical case, or the first case in the Rambam in mitzvah tzadihei haforos nedorim, there's no kiyum. It's a law of the Torah. If the Baal wants to be mefer or the Ab wants to be mefer, the neder, he has the right to do so. Now, if you had any doubt that the Rambam actually means that it's an amal and a mitzvah gila with a kiyum, you look at the continuation of the Lashon of the Rambam, and it's clear that there's a mitzvah sheish bo kiyum. And let me read. Ulefi shebo, okay, bo, uloi siel isha, b'chulei, ukva his boyer, b'gmo makis, גם כן, בלאו זה, כמו שהסבויה באינס, רוצה לומר שלאו זה שקודמו יעשה. So it's a lav שקודמו יעשה. So what does that mean? The lav shekodmo yaseh means that it's a type of lav shenitak laseh, even though it's not logically that the lav comes and then comes the aseh, but here the aseh happens to come before the lav, but it's also menatek the lav. Now, if that's correct, we always would have assumed in lav shenitu laseh is the bitloi v'loi bitloi kimo v'loi kimoi, that there is a kiyum in the aseh. So if there's a kiyum in the aseh, willy-nilly, one we'll have to say that this is an amar. It's a mitzvah regila. So, not only does the Ram say that it's an amar explicitly, but he clearly says afterwards that he applies the lishonos of lav and aseh, lav shekodma aseh, that there is a kiyum over here. So now, once one does this, one has to ask the following question. So what does it mean? Why did the Ram call it a din? So the suggestion is that the word din, and I'm going to show you two other examples, and we'll see one this evening, and one that will come later on, or weeks or months to come. I can't tell you what it's going to be. But the Rambam has cases where he calls something a din, and what the din means, not that it's necessarily a shirano, but it could be an amal, but it's a mitzvah which has many halakim. And din, moiti shemra, is a conglomerate of many pratim. And one prat over here particularly is Malchus, shetzivonu lahal kaisai, u shetishoyer ishtoi imoy, and that they should remain married. Two parts, but it's two halakim. Similarly, we'll see later, Bli Neder, that you have, and not only, you have three parts. The third part, not 100% sure it doesn't mention it, but it could be. There's Malchus, Lishoya Ishtoi, and Knas Meshkol, which he's not going to talk about, and we'll have to know whether it is really part of it or not part of it. Okay? Okay. And also, we find the similar thing in mitzvah Reish Chof, the next mitzvah coming up, where he says, He shetzivonu, but there it happens to be a shirana. We'll talk about it, Mitzvah Shem, Bedin HaMefata. And in Mefata, we'll find Chalokim, Dahainu, that if he wants to get married, he has to give a ksuba, and if he doesn't want to get married, he has to pay kilas. Okay, and then there's another case, whether I'm not 100% to talk about the pros and cons of mefate being a mitzvah with chalakim, but you really don't need it because anyway it's the chasharana. Okay, so it might be just a plain din. The third case is the din of Evet Kanani, mitzvah of Evet Kanani, mitzvah Seirei Shalom and Hey. We has the part of Yitzia B'Shem B'Ayin, and he also has another part called V'Avod L'Olam. So two parts, and he calls it a din. Okay. This is one. Okay. So we have over here now Udin Moiti Shemra, Chleima Shetzivonu Hal Kaisai, Zishoy Ishta. See here, we have a problem. There's the HaMitzvos Shetzivonu Hal Kaisai. And L'chera, it's based on the pasuk V'loch Ziknei Ha'ir Ahu Es Ho'ish V'Yisro Isai. In Dvorim Chof Beis Yud Ches, and the Gemara Ksuvos Mem Vav and Aleph, B'Yisro, Ze Malchus. So there's a problem over here. That's what it says. That's the plain translation of the word. But we have a problem. The problem is the mitzvah. We'll see a few other problems, okay? But let's start with this one, okay? Malchus is learned from Midas Hatera, a Gzeir Shova. The Gzeir Shova, Motzi Shemra, Lebein, Seru Meure. And L'cheira, what we're doing is we're using Mil Gimel Midas, the mitzvah, the mid of Gzeir Shova. The more Ksuvas, Mem Vav and Aleph, El V'Yisro, Ze Malchus Menola, Oba Vavoyo, Lomadnu, Yisro, Yisro, Mi V'Yisro, V'Yisro mi Bein, Bein mi Bein, V'Hoya im Bin HaKoisarasha. So L'cheira, it's Mavu and Shiur Sheni. The droshes of Yud Gimel Midas are not, have nothing to do with Minyan HaMitzvos. And the Ram counts, it's Yvon L'Achleisai, oh, that's a mitzvah. So here, this is not so difficult. First of all, we can say, like the Piskov, Hilchos Malchus Asuris, that he postulates and assumes that after there is a mitzvah in Torah Shebiksav, you can expand the mitzvah to Midas HaTorah. It's only the Ram says you can't create a mitzvah, you give a midas, but you can expand it. Here, there's the HaMitzvos Motzi Shemra, so you can expand it through the Yud Gimel Midas HaTorah. The only thing that one should ask, if that's the case, the Ram should have been makbid to make Malchus the second on the list, because the Chayr should start at Aishto, which is a Chamafuish pasuk, V'loi siel Isha, lo yuchal l'shalcha kol yomo, and then Lo Kleisai. But he puts it in the chronological order. Lahal Kleisai, Ushetishoy Ishtoi, Levisha Bo Boy Gamkein. It's also a tzim. So L'cheira is not only tzivu Yisrael, but it's tzivu Yalisha. But that's a little bit odd. Can you logically write it like this? That the you could write about Malchus as being a mitzvah before you've postulated and expanding through Gzeir Shova before you have Loisielisha. So I'm not sure, but that's the first answer with the issues that you could ask about it. One could say another approach that there's a Pirush Mekubal, and the Gzeir Shova, as the Ram says in Shiur Sheni, and as Aktama the Pirush HaMishnah, that the Gzeir Shova could be a remes for the Pirush of Matiki Ashmua, which they heard be Sinai, and you have a remes in the pasuk that this is a Pirush Mekubal. That there is some source for the Pirush Mekubal. It's not a Gzeir Shova. The Gzeir Shova is the remes for the Pirush Mekubal. So being a Pirush Mekubal, you have no problems. It could be the first on the list, and everything is A-okay. There's another way of doing this. And saying, this is not a real Gzeir Shova. What it really is, Chazal are searching throughout the text of the psukim and how the words in the Torah are formulated, and using this bin, that this is the translation of the word V'Yisrael. And through Gzeira Shava, we understand what the word means. And the same way, V'Yisrael over here is Malchus, V'Yisrael Ben Tzor, Ben Tzor is also Malchus. As the Rambam says in Lukas Mamrim, Keitz Adonin boy, Ben Keitz Adonin, Ben Tzor Umeira, V'chulei, V'zo he, Eidus Holishoina, U'Malkin Oisai, V'Shachai V'Malchus, Shnev V'Yisrael Oisai, V'Yishma. This is assuming, and the assumption is that the Yisroel in both places mean Malchus, and the Rambam is working with like that in Hilchos Mamrim. However, interesting is you would expect it, according to this, that Onkelos, both in Bein Tzar and over here, should interpret the word V'Yisrael in both places Malchus. But the interesting thing is, when it comes to Motzi Shemra, he says V'Yisrael V'Yilkid, which is Malchus. So Motzi Shemra is good. But when it comes from Ben Tzar, it says V'Yilfoin, is to teach him, to give him Musa or something like that. And then L'cheira, it's certainly not a way of translating the words at all. But the Ram does say that V'Yisrael is Malchus. Okay, even by Ben Tzar. So this are various ways you could have interpreted the three ways you could interpret the Gzeira Shava. It's real, but it's expanding the mitzvah. We pointed out the problems with it. Then you could say it's only the base for the Pirush Makubal, it's really not a Midat Torah B'chlal, or it's a way to translate things. The Ramban in Shiur Sheni clearly says this is a real Gzeira Shava, and he calls it Gzeira Shava, Bas Gzeira Shava. You learn one thing, one Gzeira Shava from another Gzeira Shava. And it's Midas Atera. And how could Ram say that a number from the Yud from Midas Atera is not a derais? Okay, we say that that's his discussion. Now, this is working with the following assumption, that the assumption is that there's that Malchus is part of this mitzvah. But that assumption, which Ram is working with, one could question, and very seriously question. Because the problem is that we have a mitzvah in the Torah called Malchus. And why should we say that Malchus is part of the mitzvah Motzi Shemra and not part of the mitzvah of the Oynish Bezdin on the level of Seilach Ochel? And as Ram says in Uchznari B'sula Perek Gimel Halacha Aleph, that the Malchus Bezdin is an Oynish on the lav. And which is the Oynish of Malchus Bezdin is a separate mitzvah minyan mitzvahs, as that's mitzvah Seresh Chav Dalet. So this l'cheira is a very strange. See, the first problem is how could you bring in Malchus here b'chlal? It's the chalim v'yigimul midas. The second problem, even if you learn this Malchus, why do you make it part of the mitzvah Motzi Shemra? Say that it's part of the mitzvah Malchus, one of the mitzvah minyan mitzvah according to them. So l'cheira, what you must say, and what the Ram seems to say, is that Malchus is not Malchus Motzi Shemra is not part of the mitzvah Malchus Bezdin, which is an amazing thing, but it's a din miyuchad in Motzi Shemra. In fact, the Chapasik L'Teira, the Yisro I say. Okay. The question is now more so. What they say is leaving it like this is might be good under certain circumstances, depending on what your scholastic standards are. But in typical circles, if you use Yiddish, it's gesagt. He said it, but so therefore what? So why is it true? Why would one ever say such a thing? So there's a raya to this. The lav of Leiseirach Rochel is a lav shein by Maisa. And l'cheira, the one who violates the lav shein by Maisa is not Chai Malchus. And the Gemara in Tamura says there are three exceptions. Nishba, Meimar, Makalas Hashem. And Leiseirach Rochel is not one of the three. So the conclusion should be that Malchus and Motzi Shemra is not because of the mitzvah Malchus, which has this cap of Lav Shein by Maisa, but it's a separate chiv in the Torah. And I found one of the Achreinim says something like this. The Sefer Maisa Keich on the Rambam in Hilchos Naira Sula, Perek Gimel Aleph, Umashi Kosa Rabbeinu, I'm reading, Ashor Shaloi Humil Seilach Ochil, after Rabbeinu Posak B'Yudchas Michal Sanhedrin, Tein Loiken Alav Shein B'Y Maisa, Hocha Shiny, De'ena Malchus Mizeh Halav, De'ena El Ashor, V'Malchus Hu B'Yisroi Soy, Tichsiv Lehedia. So he clearly says this. However, this approach is a nice approach in minyan mitzvahs, but in Mishnah Torah, I don't think it's going to hold water, and one can assume that Ram was chayzer. The Ram Mishnah Torah doesn't say in Perek Gimel of Na'ara that the Malchus is part of the mitzvah. He doesn't say it. He also doesn't say it in the Minyan Mitzvah Kotzer. And also in the Protei Mitzvahs, the mitzvah is to remain nosui. And Sefer Chinuch doesn't mention the Malchus in Taf Kuf Nun Zayin as part of the mitzvah. The mitzvah is plain and simple, lishoya nosui. But according to what we said, that when he says din, he's trying to say it's a mitzvah with cholokim. So then it's pretty obvious that Ram's trying to stress that Malchus is part of the mitzvah. But the Mishnah Torah, it's not good, not clear at all. And the proof that the Ram was chayz in Mishnah Torah is like this. The Rambam quotes the Malchus of Motzi Shemra in the Minyan Aloikin, And you should know one thing about the minyan aloikin. The minyan aloikin is a minyan of Malchus and Loisase. The Ramam in Hilchos Sanhedrin Perek Yutes Halacha Daled. Listen to the lashon. Kol Loisase shebatera she'ein bohen lo kores v'lo misas bezdin sheloikin alein kuf mem kuf samaches. So it means Malchus Loisase. And one of this 168 cases of Malchus is Kuf Lamed Gimel, Hamotzi Shemra Shenimsa Dvorei Sheker. So it's very clear that the Malchus is from the Lavali Selachachim. And it means then that the Malchus is because of the mitzvah of Malchus, because it's the Chamalchus on a Lav. The truth is, there is a Machlokes Rishonim, whether the Malchus of Motzi Shemra is because of the Lav, or it's a separate Chiyuv. You'll find there's an issue between Rashi and Tosfos about this in Ksuvas, Mem Hey, Amud Beis. Rashi and Tosfos, Dibor Hamaschol, Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, next. So we had two issues now about the Malchus. First of all, how can the Malchus be part of the mitzvah b'chal? It's the Chiyuv Gimel Midas. And secondly, even if it can be part of the mitzvah, maybe why should it be part of the mitzvah? It should be part of the mitzvah Malchus, which is separate mitzvah minyan mitzvahs. Now, next. One more comment about this. There comes out a very interesting thing. If you accept all the pashlets over here, there are two parts of the mitzvah. There's a mitzvah on Bezdin to give him Malchus, and there's a mitzvah on the Motzi Shemra to remain married. And you have a mitzvah, which is a cholok. That part of the mitzvah is on a certain group, and the other part of the mitzvah is on a different person, a different group, or different person. Part of the mitzvah is on Bezdin, and part of the mitzvah is on the Motzi Shemra. Lishoya Nosui. We find a similar thing is, you could assume it, so I'm not sure. You could say in Oines, the Knas is on Bezdin, because Bezdin is Machayev the Knas. And the Mitzvah Lisa, Oines, is on the Manis. So we have to ask, is there a problem that you can have one mitzvah and it's on different people? Okay. Now, the mitzvah is, the Ram says, Shetishoyer Ishto Imoy, that they should remain married. It's almost that they should be, the tzivu is, the mitzvah is, to be in the state of Nisuin. Because he was married before. He's not supposed to do anything. He's supposed to remain in the state that he's in. So the chayra, here you have this strange case that every second that he remains married is a kiyum mitzvah. But he's megarisha, then there's a ma'aseh mitzvah. when he's machzeh and marries her. Okay. Next. The very strange phrase. Yeah. Just want to read it to you and point it out. He says, Teshishoyer Ishto Imoy. Kapach doesn't have it, but it's both in Ibn Tibin and Ibn Ivoy. Lefi Shebo Boy Bo is Beis Aleph Bo Boy. Shebo Boy, whatever that means, we'll see. Gam Kain V'loy Siye Leisha Le'yuchal L'shalcho Kol Yomo. So what's Shebo Boy? In Ibn Tibin, it's Shebo Boy. In Ibn Iyov, Kibo Boy Gam Kain. And in Kapach, Lefisha Gam Boy Nema. So Kapach is the best, simplest in the Hebrew translation. Shebo Gam Nema, and there's no Bo Boy. Shebo Boy Nema. The probably Kavodas Rambam is that the Motzi Semra also should remain married. Okay. So what does it mean, bo? So I assume that it's an Arabic expression, and the kavanah is that the pasuk "V'loi sia leisha" comes to tell you this. The fisha bo that the pasuk is coming. I think that's what he's trying to say. That's according to those translations. But whatever it is, I don't think it makes much of a difference. It's either you can, I think that they learn to kill the pasuk coming for this. Now, what's the Gam Kain? So, l'cheira, it means that there's another mitzvah. There's a mitzvah lishoye Ishtai. Sheboy boy Gam Kain. There's also, I guess, then you would say maybe this is the way to do it. There's a mitzvah al kaisai, and there's also another mitzvah of loisiel isha. Okay, that's one way of doing it. Or maybe it's going back to the mitzvah before. There's a mitzvah on the ma'anes to marry the oines. And here, there's also a mitzvah, but it's not. It's not to marry, but it's to remain married, whichever way you like. I'm not sure which one it is. Now, let's go back. The Rambam makes in mitzvah parts. So he has the mitzvah Malchus and the mitzvah of Nisuin, of being married, remaining married. I guess if we would have been asked and been told that it's a mitzvah many parts, we would have said Me'ah Shekel, and Nisuin, we would have said, no, Malchus is part of the mitzvah of Malchus. Okay. But the Rambam here leaves out the Knas of Me'ah Shekel. So, what happened to it? So, one could suggest maybe that it's B'chlal, the Knas of Mefata, which we suggest the Knas of Mefata is the same way the knas of oines is b'chal the knas of mefate. They're one type of knas of 50 shekel. And it's a tashlumin on bia shloi baskoma su isha bahatchala betchila. In other words, it's only mefate. She wasn't coming there for that purpose, but he convinced her. Or ba'ines, it's either aidei oines or aidei pitui. But here, the knas is not 50 shekel, it's like 100 shekel. And the knas is not on the bia, shaloi baskom also. The knas is on moti shema. So you could still say, but this is a mouthful, that it's mitzvah achas because there's a knas on Pegia Benoshim. Pegia Benoshim, which I mentioned in the Torah. And each one, Lefi Erech, the Torah was Keveya. There's some Pegia derech bia, there's another Pegia with bad mouthing. Okay. Now, let's continue further. The Rambam continues and says, Ukva izboye b'gmor makis, gam kein, b'lav zeh, kmo she'izboye b'oines, v'toloima shelav zeh, shekodmoi aseh. So, why is the Rambam? We pointed out that you can learn from this the kima mitzvah. But what does the Rambam want this for? He's interested in telling you the kima mitzvah. So, first of all, it's a double poshit. The Rambam is not quoting this to tell you that there's no malchus over here. Because if the issue is about malchus, that should be mentioned in the lav, not in the Aseh. There's no reason you could say Labadit Aseh is telling you something about the Aseh if he's quoting the Aseh. If he quotes in the lav, he's telling you there's no malchus in this circumstance. But if he's quoting the mitzvah Aseh, he's telling you something about the mitzvah. So the Rambam L'chayr is trying to tell you that you see from this Gemara that there's a HaMitzvos Aseh. But you could have said that it's only a din, that the Torah has a knas ki'ilu, that he should remain married. But it's not a mitzvah. It's a din, it's a sharana. So comes the Rambam and says, no, it's a mitzvah megillah. And it's a kiyum, because it's not the aseh. If it's a lot, it's lachikol aseh, lachinita aseh, it has to have a lot an aseh sheish b'ki. Okay, that was mitzvah reish yutes. Now mitzvah reish chof. Mitzvah reish chof goes like this: a mitzvah or esrim u'mosayim hi shetzivonu b'din ha'mefate. So here, let's see the word Tzitzivonu is, as we mentioned before, even though all the translations say Vitzivonu, this is not clear that it's a proper translation, because here it says in the Judeo-Arabic, al tashriya al shlanu. So here it's mafurish shlana. But all the translations, the Pe'echot, Ibn Tibin, Shetzivonu, Ibn Iyoi, Vatzivu Yashetzivonu, Kappa, Chatzivu Shetzivinu, L'chera, it's more like a Hira Satera, Hatzivu Shem Bokiyum. As we mentioned, the Minchas Chinuch and l'chayr the Tirgumim are not bediktuk, because the Rambam usually the Rambam is very medaktek. When it's a mitzvah or a gila where the kiyum, he says amar, and when it's not, he says shirana. So a priori, so he says, a mitzvah esrim u'mosayim, he should sivonu b'din hamafata. So one could say, I just said before that the word din is a mitzvah that has many parts. So maybe the Ram is just trying to tell you that it's a shrana and it's just a din. And this has nothing to do with what I was talking about before. Then, if you want to take that approach, I ask you the following question. Isn't the Ram double talk? He shetzivonu bedin, the shrana of the din. So if it's a shrana, it is a din. So why does they add the word bedin? It's the double talk. So there are many parts of the mitzvah, and the chiyuv knas im eino koines amafate, and if he's koines, there's no knas, but a ksuva kishabonos, and this is a minyan hakotzer. It's a mefurish minyan hakotzer like this. Lidun במפתה בחמשים שקל עם שודינוב שנאמר כי יפת איש. It's not only one din and shaldinov, and that's what it means. That's the lidun, and that is the mitzvah that has many chalokim. And the shaldinov are the other chelkei mitzvah. So then, if you do this, it's very important to read this as if there was a v'chule. And the Ram's just telling you, read the parsha. And there are many chalakim. If he gets married, there's a ksula. And if he doesn't get married, then there's a knas. There are many chalakim. Because the ikachosim in a sefer, the Ram l'chera tetzivonu, it's a shrana bedin. So what's he saying? He's saying that there are many chalakim. So the chor is alluding it to v'chiyif yifat ish besula, and it's referring to the rest of the parasha. Now, as I mentioned before, that we have a similar thing in motzi shemra, that bedin means with chalokim, and also in Eveknaini, we have the two chalokim of the Vavodah L'Olam and Yitzia in Rosh Evorim. Now next. Shetivonu bedin amafate. So let's go over it again. The mitzvah is a shrana, it's a din. It's to act according to law satira. And it's l'chayra, you'd say the same conclusion in Akotzer, because it's a ladun, and to do according to the din. And we pointed out the minchas chinuch that at sibui, which is a din, there's no kiyum. And we also pointed out that there are many chalakim to this mitzvah. What I'd like to suggest is that it's true. This is the pshat in the Rambam over here, but the Rambam Mishnah Torah was chayzer in both of these two premises. The Rambam's opinion in Mitzvah Torah is that the mitzvah of mefata is not a shrana, but it's an amar, it's a mitzvah regila, and it's a mitzvah yesh bo kiyum. And secondly, the mitzvah is only the tashlum knas, because the Rambam put the mitzvahs writes, what is the mitzvah? Liknois hamafate. It's on Bezdin. Liknois hamafate. Ilchus Nayel Psula, Perik Aleph, Halach Aleph. He says that the mitzvahs, when he used the word mitzvah, say, he's only referring to knas. Uknas zeh, mitzvah say shoteya. And when he quotes the ksuva, he quotes it in another place later on in a separate halacha, and without saying that it's part of the mitzvah. And the truth is, the passion, the psukim is that it's not a shrana, the tov is a tzivui. We should do this or that or something. We should give, that the knas should be given. Look in Shmos, Chof Beis, Tezvav, and Tezayin, you get the impression that something should be done, and there's a tzivui. So, l'chvera, what the Ram says, and puts the mitzvah aseh, it says the knas, and doesn't put the ksuba together, it's mashma that the mitzvah is only the knas, and the ksuba is not part of it. And the chiyuv of giving the ksuba the question is, so what's the chiyuv of giving the ksuba? So there is a possibility, and it sounds a pure wild, but I found the Northern Yehuda says it afterwards. It could be that Torah gives you two ways of paying the knas. that if you marry the woman, you pay the knas to the ksuva. And if you don't marry it, you pay the knas through 50 shekel. And the ksuva is you really only pay up if there's a divorce or a death. And everything is Mechal Mitzvah Knas. No, the Yehuda seems to say this in Madur Tinyana, Simon Lamed Gimel, that which it tells Mechayev Knas is B'mokoim Ksuvas B'sula Shehefsida. However, it's very clear from the Ramban al Torah that the ksuva the Ramban al Torah in Shmois Chav Beis Tezvav, something like this but different. That Moyi Moreno is Savlonis that you give to the Aviyah Lifnei Chasana. If he doesn't, if he marries her, the Av gets the Knas before through the Savlonis. The Im Eino Noisi, so he doesn't marry her. And he gives the value of the savlonis that she would have had he married her. So he gets the money either way. So it's much better. He's getting money. He's getting money either savlonis before the married or the value of the savlonis if he doesn't marry her, but it's only derech hapshat in Rambam, because he's learning the ksuva is lav deraisa, and this is savlonis. That's the pshat moyim learning ksuva. It's not ksuva, savlonis. However, looking at the Rambam to say the pshat like this is a little bit odd. Because the Lashon of Rambam in Narab Psula is Perek Aleph, Aloha Gimel, Vimrotzo, V'konso, Eino Mishalim Knas. Lots of a concept, Eino Mishalim Knas. El Kaisev Lo Ksuva, Kishar Habsulois. And the Pash the Rambam is that the Ksuva is Lav Dafka 50 shekel, but the Schum of the Ksuva is Kishar Habsulois, whatever it happened to be at that time. I call it Fiaminik. So therefore, the ksuva, the schum of the ksuva, is different than the schum of the knas, and it should be a separate mitzvah. However, the Gemara ksuva Salamed Dalid learns that the schum of the ksuva is 50 shekel. But the Lashon Rambam of Ksuva, Kishar Habsulois, is trying to tell you clearly that it could be different than 50 shekel, which is a very odd thing. This idea if you're going to say like the Nod Yehuda, you come out with something which is an amazing thing, and to say we know the Moed B'Knas whatever is potter. So let's say that he's moide, that he was boiled before he got married. So l'chayri she potter from ksuva, which is an amazing thing. This, if you're interested in this issue, look at the Minchas Chinuch in mitzvah Samach Aleph, the Pnei Shiur Ksuvas, Daf Lamed Tesam Beis, the Ramaschal Time Mamai, third He'or. According to the Rambam in Halacha Aleph, the knas of Mefata is learned from the pasuk that was said by Oinus. If you remember the Rambam in Hilchos Nari Psula, Perik Aleph, Halacha Aleph, the Rambam clearly says that the mitzvah is learned from Oinus, and of course it's the same Chamishim shekel as the knas of Mefata. But the Chiyuv Ksuva is learned from Moya Moreno on the Pasha Mefata. So it's very difficult to say that they're one. So the Gemara Ksuvas, equates the two, but in Rambam, it's a little difficult. Last, there are two parshas, separate parshas in the Torah. There's a parsha of Mefute or Mefate in parshas Mishpatim, and a parsha of Oinus in parshas Kiseitze. And in food pshuta shel mikra, there's no kesher beineim. But Chazal lomdu of the knas of Mefuta is the sheer knas of Oinus. Chamishim shekel. That's the more ksuvas achav tesam base. Okay, Mitzvah Shem, I guess we'll stop here.